Okay, let's double check that this stream has worked. I've not streamed on YouTube yet. Let's see. Live. I am live. Excellent. Cool. Okay, sweet. Let's double check that this stream has worked. I've not. Okay, awesome. Okay, so Redshift, huge new changes with S26. Basically, I'm going to go over a lot of the stuff. I wanted to go ahead and live stream it just to get it out there faster than edit it. And I'm going to chop it up and make highlights of it that are going to be able to look at. I'll post after this. But basically, there's so many new changes with this S26 update that it just changes everything for Redshift users. Basically, the first thing that it does is that it actually makes Redshift available to everyone that has Cinema 4D, which is crazy. So basically, if you own the Cinema 4D subscription, you will get the Redshift render options. All you need to go to render is choose Redshift, but you're only gonna have the CPU capabilities of Redshift, which seems weird coming out of my mouth because Redshift has always just been GPU, but now they've built it so they can do CPU and GPU. So if you pay the extra to get the Redshift subscription, or you get Max on One where you get all of it together, you also get access to the GPU rendering as well. So if you're like me and you've had Redshift for years and you've been subscribing to that, you get access to the GPU and the CPU. Now the CPU is not going to be as fast, most likely, but especially if you have like an RTX card or something like that, but you're still gonna be able to do your renders and use both your CPU and your GPU. So it's probably gonna be faster. Anyway, new users everywhere. Anyone that has C4D now has access to Redshift. Few things that pop up when we're dealing with Redshift. Now, if you've used Redshift before or have seen any of the other videos, basically they have just changed the layout completely, so nothing works like it used to. Okay, so of course. So it used to have the Redshift option up here after you had it installed. It is no longer an option up here. So what happens now is once you change your renderer from standard to Redshift, it updates your layout for you. So now these options down here are Redshift options. They change the icons. They don't look like Redshift icons anymore. They now look like sun and moon and stuff like this. Hello, only JS. What's up? What's up? Let me pull up my chat here so I can see it easier. No, yes. What's up, man? Or girl? Sorry. How you doing, person? I'm so pumped trying to get this stuff out here. I've been playing around with it. As soon as I finally got S26 to install, it's been huge. Okay, so big changes for Redshift users. First thing is now we have the new Redshift settings in here available to everybody. If you're brand new to Redshift, the first thing I would suggest is just starting with bucket quality low and turning on denoiser. And with denoiser, go ahead and go down to the denoising tab within the advanced tab and lower your bucket overhead down to 0. This doesn't make a lot of sense. It seems like a lot for a new user, but basically this is just going to help clean up your renders faster. If you don't want to mess with denoiser or anything, all you need to do is increase up to high or medium. Just know that the higher the quality of the bucket render you're going to do, is going to take longer to render, and it's going to, you can't see the sidebar. What sidebar? Sorry. Oh shoot, you can't. Why is this huge? Okay, thank you. Good comms. As you can tell, I'm not a, I don't stream on YouTube yet. I stream on Twitch and I use the Streamlabs, and I didn't want to change it all just to stream on YouTube. Thank you. Right, now we can see. Okay, so let me reiterate. Once you change your settings, your render settings to Redshift from standard, this is your standard, change it to Redshift, it updates these sidebar icons for you, okay? And then lastly, to increase the bucket quality of your final render, you just want to choose these settings. The higher the settings, the longer it takes to render, but the less noise there's going to be. And we'll get into all that later, and I have lots of courses and stuff on that. But basically, I want to go over the new changes to Redshift with S26. So one big, huge change is that we are going to, there's a whole new material, okay? There's create Redshift materials. You used to always create a material. Now you create a standard. Basically, I think they call it standard because it's the new standard. So we're going to open that up. And when you double click this, you're going to notice right off the bat that this is very different from what Redshift used to be. Basically, we don't have that shader graph anymore with the nodes as kind of espresso style. You clicked everything up. Now we kind of have what, basically, if you have learned Cinema 4D in the last, not in the last few years, or you use standard render or physical render, this is going to be a little more familiar to you. It kind of makes more sense, and I kind of like it. Basically, if you want to load up the old style of the espresso loadout and stuff, you still can. You need to go to Edit, Preferences, Renderer, Redshift, and then uncheck Node Material Preset. Now, even doing that, when we go in here and create a new Redshift material, you're going to double click that and you're going to notice it's still not the same. It's moved our attributes panel for our object down here. So it's not linked to this anymore. So if you want, you have to move this over here and connect it. But then this is the same attributes panel that works for like text and stuff like that. So it's kind of annoying that they've kind of moved that. So it's really kind of forcing you to use the new method, which makes it harder to follow along with old courses, like old videos and content I have. I'm going to update my Redshift Materials Masterclass class with some of this content. We may have to just redo it completely because this just changes things so much. Basically, what we're going to do is we want to go back to our edit preferences, turn that back on. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and go to create Redshift Material Standard. And when we double click that back into this editor, what we have here, we're going to throw this on our object here. We have new settings here. We have base, which is kind of like the diffuse. We have color, weight. We have a new option here, which is called diffuse model, diffuse roughness, and metalness. And this is what we have now. Metalness is no longer in reflection, and reflection no longer has like the different types of settings where you could do like metal edge tint and stuff like that, or metalness, like those kind of settings. It's kind of a lot easier now. So basically what we can do is we have all these dots right next to our icons here. And the way this works is if you want to connect something into your color layer, like if you want to use a noise or a texture, you can right click and you can go to connect node and scroll through all these complicated things that you're going to have to rememorize how these work. And if you want to add a max on noise, you'll go to texture and then max on noise. And instantly the coolest thing is we're not in the IPR preview here, but our noise is actually showing up in the viewport, which is huge. You've installed R26. How do I import UI colors, shortcuts, plugins, and scripts from R25? I'm not sure off the top of my head. Honestly, there might be, look it up for like past versions, but this is I don't know for sure actually. I guess this is R26 versus S26. I don't know why everything says S26. But anyway, this basically, you might just have to redo it again. I'm not sure. I haven't ever messed with the colors of my UI and stuff, but I'm sure you can probably do that. I'm sure you can import that. Sorry. Basically, I think what we want to do is we want to go ahead and remove this. So we're going to right click and choose remove. And the cool thing is if you, not sure what you need, all you can do is when you control click this dot, and that is going to open up your node editor here. It's the same as pushing this button. So this looks very familiar. It's sort of like the RS material shader graph, except that the cubes or the boxes are different looking and everything has a preview. You're still going to be plugging things into the surface on your output node. You're still going to have other nodes you're plugging into your options here. Now, a few things have moved around. One thing, for instance, it's a very common thing, is bump map is no longer hidden in the overall settings. It is now here in the geometry, so you can plug stuff straight into that. You still will need to add a new bump map to actually do that, a bump map node. So to add nodes, you're going to hit this little plus sign or right click in here and go to add nodes and add new input. So we'll hit this plus sign, and basically this is going to open up the content browser over here. Same button as this button here, just in its own window, and go ahead and pull up the nodes tab for you. Instead of this nodes tab, this is where we can search for things like noise, and we can bring in max on noise and stuff like that, or bump. and we have bump map here. So now stuff's not so Redshift specific, but we have the bump map here. Basically, once you change your render to Redshift, it just kind of gets rid of everything that Redshift's not going to work with for you, and bring all the Redshift stuff to the forefront. So everything's just going to work as if it's built for this, which is awesome. So we can take our bump map, plug it in, same kind of thing, input, enable, input. We're going to go to remap. We're going to go to texture and go to input. And so you don't have to connect it straight to the dot anymore. You can just kind of throw it on the image and select it that way. It's a little easier. And then we can go straight to the bump map. And we can have all the options if we just throw it in there, or if we want to connect it straight to the bump map, we can just quick snap it straight to the bump map itself. So now in order to change these attributes, we have the attributes open down here in our attributes panel, but we also can scroll down here under the geometry and twirl this down. And you can see now that we've connected a node to that it's actually given us the little icon here. It's not an open circle, it's a line that shows that something is connected. And we control that down and we see both our texture map options. We can control the height scale here, and instead of the input, we have the max on noise. We control that down, and that is where we can control our noise type and everything like that. And you can see we even have a preview of the bump map in our scene here as well, which we never had before. We used to always have to have IPR going in order to see this. So that's pretty cool. We can turn on the IPR in here, and I've got my bokeh cranked up. Let's go ahead and delete that. Refresh that. Okay, so we have that. So pretty cool way to control that. Everything's kind of built inside of here, so you don't really have to hop around from node to node and just work in these little tiny windows. If you don't want to, you still can, but you also have the option to just twirl everything down, and everything's right there linked together in a nice organized way for you. So let's go ahead and just remove this bump map. Right click, remove. Okay, so let's go ahead and go over some of these new settings inside of here. So firstly, we have color, which is the same as diffuse color. The weight is the same kind of thing. Basically, what they've added is two types of diffuse model. We have Aura Nayar, which allows you to control the diffuse roughness a little bit. You can add that up to make things look a little dirtier and stuff like that. Seeing the material in the viewport, yes, dude, plugging nodes in and actually seeing it look like somewhat correct versus always having to have IPR going. Also, I've kind of noticed I never use the viewport IPR. I always use the render window, and I've started kind of using it, and it works a little better in this one than the other ones. I'm still not sure it's as fast as the render preview, and we'll cover that in a minute. But yes, it's a game changer for sure. So basically, we can adjust the roughness here, but if we want to change this diffuse model to the DEON one, basically this grays out our diffuse roughness, and it's going to make it have a very high diffuse roughness. So if you're going to use something like brick or something that has a very high diffuse roughness that's not going to be reflective at all, you're going to want to use this version, and that's just going to be the way to go for that. So most of the time though, you're probably going to still use the default Orin one. I don't know what these names come from, to be honest with you. But next option is this cool metalness option. And now this is not where it used to be. Like I said earlier, this is not in reflections anymore. We don't have metal edge tint. We don't have the different types of reflection metalness options we used to have. We just have this metalness slider, and it's actually very easy. All we need to do is, if you want your object to be more metallic, you increase the value of the metalness slider. And now we have a metal object. So if you want it to be chrome, you're going to want to make it pure white for the base color, and that's going to make it sort of this chrome silver look here. And if we want, I'm going to turn off my denoising just a little bit here because it's a little too intense. And then if you want it to be black, now you'd think you would just turn the color to black, but that's not going to work. That's going to make it sort of just disappear. They got rid of the Redshift node editor, is what Izuru is asking. Not completely. You can still access it. I showed you how to do that earlier. It's in the settings. But to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if in the next few years they do phase it out completely. And honestly, I like the changes so far. It is a lot easier to do. It makes me sad that I just completed a huge masterclass on materials, and then they changed the way you do it somewhat. You can definitely still follow along. All the words and stuff are the same. They've just added a few new things. But so going back to this, our black material, we want a black metal, but we can't get that. So what we do is we go up here to white, and we take the weight of our color and we make it something really low, like 0.01. And that's going to give us a black metal versus setting our color to black. If we put this all the way to 0, it's going to do the same thing. But if we do sort of a very low value, we're going to be able to have that black metal. Pretty cool, and a nice little note if you're dealing with metals. Lastly, with reflection for metal, we always want to try to increase the IOR to like 1.8. That's kind of a nice metallic look. And so pretty cool. That's kind of the basics of what's changed between the base and the reflection type stuff. Now there's a lot more things with the transmission that we'll cover here in a minute, as well as the subsurface has changed completely. Both of these two have made huge upgrades. And then they've added a new one here that works really well with metals, and it's called thin film. And thin film is not to be confused with coating. Yes, Triton, that is correct. You can still enable the old one. So basically, coating is kind of like a lacquer. Like if you increase this, it's just going to put a clear coat over top of your object. Now, thin film is different, and thin film is going to work like a bubble. I think it's kind of more similar to Octane's thin film. So basically, there's a unit that you use to measure the thickness of a thin film, and so basically, this is going to range from 0 to 1,000, and you'll have different colors across the way here. And if there's a certain color that you're looking for, you can look that up. But basically, this is going to give you that really cool pearlescent look on your materials. You can see it really nice here. And if we kind of go up here to the 500, you'll see it'll be a different colors. And then that in combination with the IOR is going to just really change the way this looks as well. A closer value to 1 is going to be kind of more of a harder to see type of bubble, and a higher, further away from 1, it's going to be more of a metallic-y, interesting type of bubble. So a weird thing I definitely want to play around with more. Like why does that create gold? I don't know, but we'll get into that. And it's just a really cool. I think that like from 100 to 300 to 400 it gets you a lot of really cool bubbly looks. So a really cool new feature that works on top of glass and stuff as well. So we can get rid of metalness here, and we can just have a diffuse, and we'll still have that. We'll make this more of a dark gray, and we can have that thin film over top of our plastic as well. So it's not just restricted to metals and things like that. So we'll get rid of our thin film, and we'll talk about transmission here. So they've added a few more things inside of transmission that I really, really like. And so we're going to go ahead and crank the weight up to 1, and this is going to make this just see-through glass. And we're going to go ahead and change our roughness down to 0. So we have perfectly smooth glass. You can see through it. And so what they've added is they've added extra roughness and depth. And these two things are awesome. So basically, extra roughness is going to allow you to make your glass cloudier without actually messing with the reflection roughness as well. So let's go ahead and start increasing this up to like 0.4. You're going to notice that our edges are still really smooth, but we now have this nice milky glass. So we still have these clean reflections because our reflection roughness is still at 0. So now it's just adding roughness inside of our glass. So it's making our actual glass rough without making our reflections rough. So you can have this really cool, nice, clean finish over top of your glass. Again, we can do this in combination with colors. Simply changing your color to red is going to give it a red tint. So one thing, I'm not sure if I mentioned earlier or not, but basically with the RS material, you have these presets, and this is like the preset for tinted glass. Presets are gone. They're not gone. They're just not in the standard material. So there's no presets to load in really quick. So you're going to have to build it from scratch every time. I'm sure you can start saving a library of things for yourself. But you can see here that as we increase this, it's going to become more and more kind of like candy. Honestly, it's going to be rougher inside of itself there. So it's a really cool way to do this without having to mess with subsurface. Just add some thickness to this. It's really, really cool look. Now, the next feature is depth. Hold on. What, huh? Sorry, I think my wife yelled at me. I'm not sure. Should be okay. Depth is, we're going to look at this because at 0, it's not applying any of the depth feature at all. But if we turn this up a little bit, you're going to see that the way it works is the amount of depth is determines how deep into our object, our light is allowed. So if our depth value is really low and above 0, it's only going to let light into it a little bit. But if we turn our depth up to 10, it's going to let light into our object a lot more, and it's going to let it in even more where our object is thin, and then less where our object is thick. So it kind of works in a really nice organic way, and it just makes sense in your head. It's like, I want more light to reach deeper into my object, so we're adding this nice depth feature, which would be great for oceans and water and stuff like that, where there's this really nice natural fall off of light and it gets absorbed, but you don't have to worry about messing with absorption colors and getting the opposite color to the extinction and all that stuff. It's much simpler, and it's just using transmission. This isn't using Subsurface anymore to render this, so it's for even rendering, I think, even faster. Really, really cool way to do this. Now we can still go back to Y tier. We can take our roughness away, and you're not going to notice that depth as much without the roughness. I think those two work really well together. But one thing for sure we can do is increase the dispersion here, which is a normal thing we used to have, but it's just kind of easier to control. And that's going to give us these colors and rainbow effects here. And then lastly, real quick, I want to go into the subsurface section here. We'll change this back to just a solid plastic. And we're going to go to the subsurface. Sorry, I think my dinner is ready, so I'm going to have to hop off here real soon. But basically, subsurface, it works way easier now as well. We have ray trace diffusion as the default, which I think is actually slower than point-based diffusion, but it's more accurate. We're going to go ahead and leave that for now. You just increase the weight of this, and that's going to say how much do I want this subsurface to be applied to our object. So let's say I wanted this to be sort of a purple wax. Well, let's turn our weight down a bit here. And we can see we still kind of have this weird mix between this gray plastic and this purple wax. So if we turn it all the way up, we get sort of this really waxy look. And this is all in combination with the radius and the scale as well. So you can see as our light, and this is all very determined by our light, and we just have an overhead light and the thickness of your object, all that stuff. So I'm not going to get super in depth into this, but basically subsurface is even easier to control now. We have a radius. The lower value this is, the more just plastic it's going to be, and it's not going to look like as waxy. It's going to look more like a solid. So the lighter it is, the more solid it's going, or waxy it's going to look. And that is also in combination with the scale here. The lower the scale, the more solid it's going to look, and the higher the scale, it's going to have this kind of, hang on one second. I have to go kill a spider real quick. I'll be right back. Okay. Sorry about that. I had to kill a spider. Okay. Basically, the scale is freaking me out, but I'm pretty sure the higher the scale, the more this works. The more it looks more like wax, and I'm not 100% sure. Lowering the weight and stuff. The subsurface has always been confusing, and it's just weird. But one cool thing that you definitely can do with this is now we have a radius option here. We can go ahead and use a noise here. We'll go to the node editor. We'll grab this noise that we used here, and we can plug this in to the subsurface radius, right? And inside of this noise, we can make it a little higher contrast. And what you're going to see is basically higher contrast is we're going to get areas here that are white, and they're going to have more of that glossy or like waxy substance here, and then we have areas that are black that are going to be solid surface. So it's kind of almost like you have this object that has a layer of paint over it, and then you can start to see through it underneath it, and you can start to see the subsurface scatters be applied. I don't know, so you can definitely see how you can combine some pretty cool things there. But those are pretty cool. You can't see the difference as much when you lower the scale really far down, so pretty cool too. It's a nice value here. But let's turn the subsurface off and go back to the last thing I think I want to talk about. So that's most of the changes in here. We have sheen, still, coat, all that stuff. The geometry tab is a big one because this is where you're going to plug in displacement and stuff like that. So that brings me to the point of the Redshift tags, which are different now. Redshift, we used to go ahead and we would have our object here, we'd right click, and we'd have a Redshift tags option, and that's not there anymore. So now we have render tags, and inside of render tags, we have Redshift object. And this is still where you're gonna go to enable your geometry, your extra tessellation, and your displacement when you're using a displacement tag on your material. But one thing that's different is with the camera, now you'll notice we don't have bokeh and stuff like that because we do not have a Redshift camera. And if you go down here and click camera, where our Redshift options are, it doesn't add a Redshift camera for us. It just adds a camera, which is a little annoying, but all we have to do is right click this and then go to camera tags and then add this little discrete Redshift camera option here. So now we have bokeh and stuff, which we can control inside of our camera. We have to override and enable that. And then we can go ahead and, adjust that. The sad thing is we still, like in the IPR viewer here, we don't have our little dropper we can use to just click and stuff like that. Oh, you can even enable post effects in here. That's pretty cool. Sweet. Okay. Basically, you really liked having to use my dropper and control it that way. So now I have to go back and forth between the camera tag, use the dropper there, then go back into the Redshift tag, increase the bokeh and stuff there. But really all we need to do is open up our render viewer, which again, they've removed a quick way to do that. So we have to go to window and then Redshift render viewer. We'll set up a hotkey for this. But now back inside of here, we can turn this off. So we can use this. And we have this option here with this little icon to do our little click focus where we can click on our object and then hold Alt and click and drag to adjust our bokeh value there. So pretty cool. We still have that option there. Just make sure you add that Redshift tag back on there. I hope that they fix that and make this come in with that tag because there's no reason it shouldn't. Oh, without it, yeah, if I just click camera, I don't have the Redshift option there, so that's kind of a bummer. Okay, cool. What else? What do you guys have questions about? I kind of flew through a bunch of things that I wanted to make sure that I got out. Lights and stuff are still kind of the same. Portal lights, sunlight, point lights, Redshift sky, Redshift environment. Very similar to the last update was that all the lights come in with fog volumes with them automatically, so pretty cool. You guys have any questions? Just go ahead and type it up in the chat. Look at more stuff too. They're starting to add more Redshift stuff in here in the content browser too, I noticed. Sad. They get rid of the landscape ones they had in there. So much stuff. Basically, we can go over a few more things. All new content. Here's new Redshift things. Okay. Rocket lasso, nice. Future UI stuff. Let's take a look at this. Why not? One thing I know Chris Schmidt mentioned is that the standard material holds energy better than the like RS material. So basically, when you used to make things have a lot of roughness value, especially in the diffuse, everything got a lot darker than it needed to get. And now the standard material doesn't do that. So we can go in and just look at the node editor and stuff more because it's going to be a lot. That's kind of cool. Interesting. Okay, let's look at what else. What else is different? Flew through a lot. Let's go ahead and just add, instead of using our dome light, let's do a new light. Do an area light. And we will move it up and rotate it to bits. We're going to bring it over and shrink it down and rotate it a bit more. And we're going to take that. We're going to take the spread of that way down low. And then we're going to see what that looks like. My hotkeys are gone. I'm sad. There we go. So now we're blasting that light in here. Let's turn bloom off. And then for our area light, we still have to turn these way down because they all come on far too bright. Yeah, we have this nice volumetric lighting going on now. I love how fast Redshift is volumetrics. Cool. Does that show up in here? Sort of. See, I just don't think the IPR preview in here works as fast. And I do want to check if ray tracing shows up, or the RT, the real time, shows volumes now. I know they added subsurface support to that and stuff, but I don't think they added volumes. There's no Redshift menu. What do you mean? Is that art? Is that ray tracing right there, or RT? They're working with the volumes. It's not. RT never works, right, man? Okay. Basically, excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm in the middle of a cold, but this came out today, so I had to get something out there. If you want to go to the preferences, you can go down to the Redshift option, and you can turn on Redshift main menu if you want that. That's what you're looking for. Oh, right. Hybrid rendering. I want to talk about that. So basically, when you pop up now, you see that we have the option to include our CPU and do a hybrid render of using our CPU plus our GPU. And I wanted to test that out. Basically, what I found is that my GPU is much faster than my CPU. And so we have two buckets. This is the CPU bucket, and this is the GPU bucket. But I guess it's faster because it's, you know, adding on there. It's not slowing down the GPU one. But there you go. So a little bit faster, maybe. Let's do a little comparison thing there. So that was 24 seconds. Go into edit preferences again. Uncheck the CPU. And we'll hit render again and see what the difference is. Yeah, okay, good. I'm glad you like that. I'm gonna play around with transmission stuff more, man. This is awesome. $21 So it was faster for me not to use my CPU. So there's that. Now I can see maybe if you're on a Mac or something, you have one of the new ones, maybe Maybe those cores are faster in combination with metal or something. I don't know. I'd love to see some testing for that. But as far as a Ryzen 7 versus a 3070 Ti, the 3070 Ti is winning. Yeah, cool. So inside the standard material, let's go ahead and just play around with new nodes. So this is going to be, this is a lot. So I definitely want to take this and throw this in here so that these things are connected, because to me, this just feels right. This feels familiar enough that this feels like Redshift to me, but obviously I don't mind these these are actually kind of nice. It's kind of nice that I can just be like, and it'll give me options to input. I don't have to go ahead and go, zoom in so I can see exactly where I want to plug that in. I like that. And also the color coding, obviously you can see the bump map, and these are purple here and this displacement. So this kind of stuff, yellow stuff goes to yellow stuff, purple goes to purple. That's really nice, a nice little extra thing that the Redshift shader graph didn't have. So I like that for sure. So let's go ahead and just make like a lollipop kind of texture. I feel like that'd be a good one to show off the new transmission stuff. So let's use this, and we'll go into the bump with this. As I miss wildly. Go to the bump. We'll go to our bump options by scrolling down through here. We'll make the scale -2. That should dent it in a tiny bit. I may need to use displacement. Maybe just do -1. Yep. We'll go ahead and do the IPR here. Turn off our volume for sure, because we don't need to waste that render energy. I'm going to slide this over so I can see it to the side of this. And we can take this back up to 100. Let's just bring our dome light back as well. Man, I have not got used to the fact that the lights are down here now. Okay, dome light down here. Dome light, we'll load up a shader thing real quick. Okay. And increase the intensity of that by about 10 and rotate it around. Make sure I'm on my dome lights. I do love this live feedback though. Like this feels more like Octane than Redshift to me, like the super noisy preview pass. It's weird. Okay, but we've got our shape here. That does not look good. Let's go ahead and lower our contrast on this, and we'll make some candy. Output contrast 0.5. Okay, we just want a little roughness value here. Yep, and then we're gonna go back to our main material here, and you can see we've got attributes here, we have attributes here. So we've got kind of options to pick where we want to do this stuff at. I like having this material editor window here where everything is together and I don't have to hop around. I like that a lot. Roughness, we're gonna say 0.3. And then for transmission, we definitely want to do what color lollipop, what flavor we want. Like red is classic, but I've already done red. Let's do like a green, like a sour apple. A real nasty, horrible color to look at. Okay. Boom. Neon, nuclear. It's like it's gonna be sour. Okay. Dome light, turn that back down. It's too much. There we go. Okay, we've got that. And so now let's go ahead and add in our extra roughness. That's just gonna make that a little thicker. And man, this is like perfect. And then the depth will say like 5. And that should give us, yeah, maybe that's too much. We'll say like 2. So now where these little edges are that are thin, our light's really gonna get through there. All right, cool, let's go to window. I'm not used to the IPR view yet. I've not sold on it working. Zoom in on this bad boy. Yeah. So that's really cool, really fast. Our object is kind of a funky thing to do this on. We might should just do it on a sphere, honestly. But you can see how this extra roughness and stuff is adding in just that extra bit. We can add in another layer of color into here. We could do something like, we want to be sort of a darker green in the middle for sure. So we'll add the scatter color. And that's going to scatter more of this green through our light, and we can adjust how that's working. Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's reset that. Is that what that is? Well, 0. Okay. So if we change our scatter color to orange, that should add orange light scattering throughout our scene. Now, does this scatter? That looks really nice. That looks way better than that nasty green. So this is almost overpowering our green altogether. So I'm wondering, if I increase the roughness, am I going to see more of the green or more of the orange? Doesn't look like it's affecting it at all. No. So if I make this white. Oh, so it really was affecting it a little bit though. You can tell the difference here if we make this red. It's really, yes. Okay, so it's just kind of, it was a weird color to affect it so much. So it looks like this is probably going to work a lot with the depth. So let's go ahead and increase our depth. And I feel like the higher the depth is, the more of the scatter color we're going to see leak throughout that. A little bit, but not as much as I thought. So if I make this pink, this white, that's a really cool look. Okay. So scatter color is just going to work based on, it's just going to, based on the depth a little bit, somewhat, and the roughness. So basically your thicker objects are going to have the scatter color, it's going to be darker in there. So I was like, this is a more of a solid color. And these thin objects are not going to be affected by the scatter color as much because our depth is blowing it out. So we lower the depth. We're not going to get near as much. Oh, our scatter color is still going through it though. It's just all purple. This is interesting. Okay. Figuring this out. We're getting there. So I'm trying to find the balance between when the scatter color takes over and when it doesn't, and it seems to really want to take over a lot. So the closer it is to 1, the more it's going to be the scatter color. Closer to 0, yeah, it's going to be more like the brightness is closer to it, and then further away from 0 in the negative direction, it's going to be affect the back end of it. I get it. I get it. So I don't think depth is really messing with it too much. Depth is just messing with it overall, and then the scatter is really being affected on its own. So basically, if we take our scatter to white, we're gonna have a white scatter. Make our object red. We'll see our white scattering inside of our red. Lower the depth to 0. We should still have some. We have no scatter. Okay, depth 100% applies scatter effect. So a very low depth effect makes it kind of a nice waxy plastic kind of look, and then a higher depth is going to allow more of those tight edges and stuff to kind of be affected by that scatter color more. Interesting. This is like a really easy way to get some subsurface scattering looks without having to deal with subsurface scattering. Okay, cool. If there's anything else you guys want to see, let me know. gone over the basics already and the huge changes. What do we want to make? Like this. So we want to make gold. We did that already. Make copper. Basically, we just go in here. We make it sort of a coppery color. And we go to our metalness value and crank that up. And we can go ahead and just make it a little more orange. And we have dented copper just like that. I mean, that's kind of awesome. Thin walled works the same. It's in geometry now. Works well with transmission. Basically, when you use thin walled with transmission stuff, you get rid of all the depth and scatter stuff. So it just becomes like thin plastic. Take a look at that. Yep. So just having thin walled enabled gives it that look. So it's all just controlled by this. And then we have extra roughness still with thin walled, which gives it thickness. Kind of a really nice plastic look, I'm not gonna lie. Just 1.3. Yeah. That's pretty cool. So even thin walled is like not just like super thin plastic anymore. Cool. You can add a film on top of everything. Weird. I am curious to know whether take this off. Let's do a metal here. I'm curious to whether the thin film will go over top of a coat or a coat goes over top of the thin film. Looks like the coat goes over top of the thin film. Yeah. All right, let's do something cool. Let's get out of here. Let's go. Let's open up a project from my course. Let's do my latest tutorial, which is just clouds. That's not it. Bar or something. I don't have anything. Try this one. Yeah, I know it's old. Okay. Hey Derek, good to see you. Hey, how are you, man? Look, we're going over all these new changes, all these new icons, all the new Redshift stuff. Redshift volumes are different. Like all the pictures are different. Look at this. Let's see what this looks like with the IPR view. All right, that's kind of cool. It doesn't load in super real time. It's a little tricky. But it looks like we can go in and change some things, like we can have post effects on. Don't know what mixed rendering does. Whoa, it's like viewport plus, it's mixed. It mixes the viewport plus the material, which is really odd. That's a weird one. We want to do undersampling of 3. So that'll really be more like Octane. It'll be super noisy. But that's pretty cool. Okay. Let's just do a new scene. So one thing that we can show off is how to do like an infinite floor with Redshift, because with Redshift, you know, with C4D, you could always just do this and do infinite floor. And you'll notice now that because we are using the Redshift render setup here, oh, no, we're not. We'll go to Redshift. Where's the floor at? It's been so long. They get rid of it. Stage. So if I go back to standard, there's floor. Okay, yeah. So basically, when you switch over to Redshift now, it gets rid of everything that you can't use. So there's no longer like, I can't even add regular Redshift Cinema 4D lights because I don't need to. They're not going to work. But I can use like motion cameras and stuff now, which is pretty sweet. So to create an infinite floor, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create a plane. We'll make it pretty big. We'll say 4,000 by 4,000. And we're going to hit C on that to make it editable. Choose our segments here. We're just going to double click back there to make those. And we're just going to go up this way a little bit. Hold shift to make it a little even. And we'll go up about 500. And then we'll start just kind of holding control. And we'll go, 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 go. So straight up. Straight up. There we go. And now with this selected, we'll hold Alt and click Subdivide. Divide, and that's going to go ahead and make a cycle for us so we can scale up. So now we'll have a nice infinite floor. Finally gonna move to Redshift. The final step before this, I want to put hands on a good GPU, and I want your advice. Get an RTX card. Easier said than done. But yeah, I jumped from a 1070 to a 3070 Ti, and I thought my renders would be, because the CUDA cores is like 4 times as many CUDA cores or something like that, like 3 times. So I thought my renders would be 3 times faster. My renders went from like 4 minutes down to 20 seconds. Like it was way faster of an upgrade than I thought. So definitely, if you can get your hands on a new 30 series or wait till the 40 series comes out, it's going to be pretty soon. If you can possibly get your hands on one of those, I would. It depends on what you do. If you're just doing stuff by yourself, anything from the 3060 Ti and up would be good. I wouldn't get the 3060. I would get like a 2080 or something before I got a 3060. But yeah, definitely do. If you can get a 3070 and up, you're golden. You're gonna be flying. It's great. And just keep in mind, the new cards, they don't stack unless it's the 3090. So if you want to like put multiple ones in your machine, you can with Redshift. So I guess you can have multiple ones in your machine, and then inside the Redshift preferences, you'll have all of your GPUs that are available, and you can just click them. But if you want to actually really use the power of multiple GPUs, like if you're a gamer and you want to game on like ultra wide 4K at high frame rate and all this stuff because you're a pro or something, only the 3090s stack. So actually gaming won't use. But if you're not a gamer, you can get whatever cards you want. You can put multiple in there. They do suck up a lot of power, so you're gonna need a big power supply. I think your best bet for getting a new GPU is if you're doing a fresh build and go through a company that gets it all bundled together. It's gonna be hard to find just one on its own. But yes, a lot of new cool settings. I do like the fact that I can have lock render to camera set by default down here. Yes. Let's go ahead and change it to 1080. And to do an infinite light, it's really hard for me to remember now that my lights aren't up here. I know it's just been a day, so I haven't got used to it yet. But basically, to add a new light, your lights are now down here. And we can go ahead and add an area light. And we're just going to set up a studio setup here. So we have this huge studio that we've built. And we want to just take our light and move it up. It's not the light. Our light, move it up. We can make our square bigger. And basically, we're going to act like a huge giant diffuse. And we probably made our floor a little too big. We'll bring that back in. Yeah, like that. We'll slide it back. This way. And you can see how this fall off is getting applied there. So to create an infinite floor, what you need to do with your light is, if you're going to use an area light like a studio, how they do it in an actual real world space, excuse me, is they have a bunch of lights back here lighting up your cyc. So we'll go up higher and we'll make copies of these. So now we have these back here, and you can do this a little cleaner than I'm doing it, obviously, but we're just gonna move this like that. And so now when I bring in a cube and I slide it back here a little bit and up, just make it bigger. Move our camera back a little bit here. And we can adjust our camera by adding a new camera. And we'll say we want to do a 85mm lens and then pull it back. So we have our cube here in our space and all of our lights in an infinite floor. So if we want to change the material of this Redshift material standard, put that on the floor. We'll make a copy of this, hold Control, click and drag, and we will throw this one on the cube. And we'll go ahead and make this one metal. Yep. And we'll add some roughness to that. Like this. So it's kind of a cool instant look. And then for this, we want this to have no reflections whatsoever. So we're going to turn that off. And that way we're going to get perfectly smooth, infinite. So now we can just change the color of this. If we want it to be sort of a muted lime green, we can do that. Or yellow. We can have our color swatches here. We'll choose something that's a preset here. So now we have a nice infinite floor. It's not the same as like having a cutout background. So keep that in mind. What we could do is we could take our plane here, right click it, go to render tags and Redshift object. If basically you want the reflections and stuff from your floor to be applied on your object, but you don't want these shadows and stuff from the curve. A lot of that's just because my scene's not set up very well here though. But you could go in and go to visibility and override that. And what we can do, not visibility, go to matte, override that and enable that. And basically this is just going to make this like an alpha layer. So you're still going to get all the effects of having that floor there. But when it comes time to render, this is all just going to be an alpha channel. Once we set that up. There we go. Set the alpha down to 0. So now you'll have your cube with the actual colors and stuff from the cyc infinite floor, but now you can just plug in whatever color you want. And it's kind of like if you're doing something for graphic design or something like that, that's how you could do that. So let's undo that. Cool. Let's check this. I don't know, I just want to keep playing around with thin film and stuff, I guess. Yeah. Used. I have a lot of light in my scene. We're going to go ahead and select all these lights and we're going to take them down to about 10. There we go. And this one that's closer to our object, we're going to crank back up. Nice. So you can see we have this nice fall off. So you can do a cyc. And you can always, if you get your scale is a little, the larger it is, the the more deep that curve is going to be, smoother that's going to be. So this is kind of like if you went into a studio and they had a white cyc and they painted it blue. That'd be how that looks, but it's kind of a cool look. Cyc wall. So you can still adjust your lighting and stuff for your object here and not have to worry about all of those lights affecting it too much. You can still, you'll light your object. So think of it as if it's a real studio space. You've got all your backlights and your lights up high in the ceiling that are kind of lighting all of your background nice and neat. And then you're going to light your subject here with like lights on stands and stuff like that. If it's a car or something, you want like a real long diffuse light for something like that. Cool. More dramatic, you can go smaller and do like an angle. You can always put a tag on your object animation tag target, and then for that you want to put that on your light, and then your target's going to be that cube. So now when you move your light around, it's always going to look at your cube. So you can just easily adjust how you light that. And to do like a little studio setup, you can do that. You could always build a ring light out of an array of lights and stuff like that. Whatever you want. But let's look at some of the new features in our S26, or R26. Let's look at it. I haven't even messed with spline dynamics and crap like that. I saw Grayscale Gorilla did something with spaghetti. Let's just hold on. First though, I love how fast this is working. I want to mess with dynamics with the IPR preview going in our scene here. Okay, so what we're gonna do, we have our cube. We're gonna go to our scatter pin. We're gonna draw a bunch of cubes all around here. Okay. Got all these scatter cubes. We're gonna hit C. We're gonna take all these instances, select them. We're gonna hit C. Okay. Now we need to go to here, and we go to dynamics and simulation. And oh, they're bullet tags now. Okay, go to rigid body. I'm gonna put this on the scatter object up here. I'm gonna right click this and say copy tag to children. So now it's gonna put that on all of these for us. Now wait, is that what I want? I don't think I need to do that. I don't need to do that. I do that. Check this out. I think I can just leave it. I can just back up, grab all of these with the select children. Select children. I can grab the dynamics move tool. I can just move them all up. I've got to get out of this live viewport though. I want to see it though. I want to see how it handles it. Move them all up, hold shift and let them go. Are they going to work as a unit here? Move them down. So they're all working as one big blob versus individual elements. There's a way to do it. I've done it before. Shoot, what am I doing? I've thought of getting Houdini to my arsenal. No. No, I haven't. I sometimes look at it. I need to look at the price of it again, because sometimes like the particle effects of it are pretty cool. But this is working really well. How well this is working. Okay, so there's a way that I can scatter these quicker and they all work instantly. Give me a second. So I take all these and I say currency to object. The instances. Then I just select all these, yeah? Select children. Unselect the group, the master group. Then I should be able to adjust them all. Yes, okay. So now we can pick this whole group up, hold shift and slam it back down. We can rotate it around a little bit. But it should work. Make it nice and dynamically. Hold shift and we're gonna slam it into the ground. So now we just have this pile of boxes that we've made really quickly. I love the scatter, these dynamic pen tools. Just group them all back up together, pick them back up, rotate them, let go, hold shift. Awesome. Sorry, we're getting our deck worked on. Something's not right apparently. Okay, cool. So that's how you can do this cool dynamic tag. Just scatter stuff out and then convert them all and then select them all and unselect the master. So just select them all by right clicking the master group, select children, And then you can unselect that by holding Control and clicking. Alt clicking, yeah, Control clicking. No, Shift clicking. Yeah. Anyway, Control clicking that, and then you can just dynamically move them all around. So it's a really quick way to make a bunch of things there. Redshift camera. Let's go ahead and play with the motion camera, I guess. Motion camera. Whoa, where did it put that? So this creates the little dude, right? Yeah. We got this little guy. And if we hit play, he's just kind of holding it. See, it's just kind of wobbling. It's like a handheld camera. So what we can do with this motion path target, okay. We can adjust our target. We can set that to our cube here. But this is all based on scale. So we need to change our cube to be way smaller. Actually fit in our scene. He's gonna watch this cube that's kind of just gonna be sticking out of the ground. That's fine. If we hit play on this, you'll see we have this nice handheld look. And to add the Redshift options to this is not working with the IPR. Let's not even worry about that. Nice handheld look. All we need to do is go into our motion tag, go to camera tags, add a Redshift camera. Instead of that, turn on the bokeh. And then we can start messing with the amount here. Inside of that, I really want to do just the focus distance. And then I want to control this separately. So we really want this to be on that. Okay. Pause. Start. Let's not do that. I don't like that. I just can't get used to that. I like it and I don't like it at the same time. You know what I mean? I just like this feels right. So now we've got our depth of field here. We can see it real easily. So I think what we can do with this is add a walk in with this. And if we want him to just travel on a path, he will. So see this little path we have drawn here. If we tell this guy to walk across this path via this motion camera tag, is that how that works? Okay, you can adjust the height of the rig and stuff and the parallel axis head, manual rotation, you can adjust rotation a tiny bit. Dynamics, enable foot dynamics, head dynamics, focus dynamics. Break all this up. What does all this do? This stuff I never messed with. Yeah, here we go. He's still not moving. You guys know what I'm talking about? I don't know. Okay. Anyway, this has been, I'm getting into stuff like on a tangent that I don't need to get into right now. Redshift, a lot of cool changes, a lot of cool settings and whatnot, especially with the material view. New standard material renderer, make things metal instantly with the cool thin film on them. Kind of sick. Like, that's awesome. Such a cool material. All right, sweet. Make it see-through. Make it extra rough. A little depth. The metalness away. Yep. Boom. More depth. More see-through. Less roughness. Cool. Use the depth here. Go higher. Hang on. Okay. I will be ready. Yes, I will. Cool. Okay. Dinner's ready. But yeah, look at that. I mean, that's awesome. And that's like no subsurface scattering. That's not messing with absorption and extinction and all that stuff. Literally just playing around with transmission, extra roughness, and depth. You get a really cool thing there. You can still adjust the roughness of the reflection on that to get a cool like jello look, or bring it way back down so it's just clear glass. I mean, it's awesome. Little film on that. Weird. I don't know. That doesn't look like that. I'm not sure what this film is doing at this point. Interesting. Cool. Definitely just gonna have to play around with that thin film option. That's a funky one. Just want to make a bubble. I just do thin wall. Hear that. I want transmission all the way up. Yep. And then to make it more bubbly, I would just go in here to this and raise the IOR. Raise the thickness some. Yeah, lower the thickness even. It's a combination of both these things. Yeah. That is interesting. I'll have to play around with thin film for sure, because it's not applying on a transmissive material like I thought it would. Yeah, pretty cool. Maybe my depth and stuff is messing with it, I don't know. Okay, I'm hungry. It's dinner time. Thank you all for tuning in. Definitely be sure to go back and watch the beginning of this. There's a lot. I covered all the new stuff, where all the new icons are, how to enable them, the new material. So definitely, it looks like most of this stuff is the same, except the icons are different. Standard material is the new one. You're going to want to use that a lot. The main thing is, now that you have to set your renderer to Redshift first, it's going to reset everything so that it's only stuff that you can actually use. All of your Cinema 4D stuff and everything is gone. Like the floor, infinite floor, and all that stuff has been replaced with only Redshift friendly things. You've got new lights and things. They're all the same. They have new icons. The cameras are different, but it is one annoyance, which hopefully they'll fix in an upcoming update, is you have the camera. You still need to go into the camera and go to camera tags and add a Redshift camera tag to actually use the bokeh and stuff like you did before. So that's a little annoying, but there's that. And then as far as the Redshift objects, to do something like tessellation and displacement, you're going to need to right click your cube, go to render tags, choose Redshift object, go inside of there, enable the geometry, tessellation, displacement, crank that up to like 1550, and let's go ahead and just quickly go to a material here. Firstly, we want to increase the segments here so we're not jacking up our cube. We'll just fillet it, so it's fine. Here we go. Okay, so there's our cube. We want to go to the node editor, which is all new. Here we go. We want to add displacement. So now we're going to do it through this displacement. Okay, cool. We want to add a texture. Cool. Looks different, looks new. There's probably a cleaner way to do this than what I'm doing, but we're going to go to texture, click our file. Let's go ahead and open up our Greeble from my Skillshare course. Beep, beep, beep. Oops. Beep, beep. Greeble. Textures take forever. Alternate Greeble one, sure. Grab that. Now we've got that. We can just click and drag wherever into here and just choose the text map input. Then this displacement we're going to grab and click into our output wherever and go to inputs displacement. So now you can see instantly that's displaced our cube, and we can bring that up. Zoom out a bit and bring it up in the world space. Yeah. And we probably just go ahead and do bucket mode. And we should probably do something besides glass, honestly, so it's faster. Cool. Let's just do like blue. Rough this up. Are we getting affected by these things? No. In film. There we go. Cool. Yep. So there we have our cube. You can add some more segments so this isn't so funky. Yeah, that's how you would do displacement stuff. The nodes and things look different, but all the options and stuff are still there. So not really that big of a deal. Pretty cool. Instant cube. Now we can just go ahead and make this metal. Now it's going to be all cool. I think this is the irradiance point cache that it's doing there. I don't like that. I don't like that. I want brute force. I don't like that loading of the point cache. Cool. So now I can't do my snowflake. Oh, I can do my snowflakes here. Yeah. So now I should be able to bake that displacement once. And we can take it off bucket mode. And now we can just move around and we have our displacement working for us. So we don't have to really worry about recalculating that or anything. It's really cool. Oh. Neat. All right, cool. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Let me know in the comments below for sure what you guys want to see coming up in the new courses, like new stuff, because there's going to be a lot of stuff where it's like, okay, I know how to do this in old Redshift. How do I do this in new Redshift? There's going to be a lot of people that are new with Redshift. They're going to be like, where the heck is anything? I don't know how to do that. So let me know what you guys want to know how to do. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time. Now I got to figure out how to end my stream.